Hello, Ted Gluck.
Hey, Fran.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Guess what, Ted? We have a phenomenal guest in the studio, our provost, Dr. Jacob Shatzer.
I know. I booked this guest. I was pretty proud of this one.
Yeah.
I know.
I started to look around because I thought surely you were speaking of someone else. But
No, this is so fun because everybody wants to know, what is a provost? Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I suppose what a provost is depends on the place. At Union, I oversee all the academic area. So my other title is Vice President for Academic Affairs, oversee deans, academic programs, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, how do you feel about that, Ted? Because that just sounds like a lot and is very overwhelming to me.
Well, I mean, I would not want to do it, but I'm glad that he's doing it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, we feel good about it because it's not us.
Indeed.
Okay, Dr. Shatzer.
Jacob's fine.
Jacob is fine. Okay, Jacob.
Dude, when do you pull the doctor on people?
Yeah, because that's a good one to pull out.
Not frequently.
You
No.
don't?
Yeah, usually go the other way.
Okay.
That's always it's a tricky one with faculty
It
because
is.
every once in a while you run into somebody who's like, no, it's
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm always gonna, I'm gonna go that route unless
Sure.
they say,
Well,
no, you don't have to call me that.
When I defended my dissertation, somebody watched our boys. They were little, 5 and 3 maybe or so, maybe younger than that, maybe 4 and 2. But anyway, we picked them up afterwards. We were driving to go somewhere to eat, and my wife said, "Daddy is a doctor now." And from the back seat, they said, "No, he not. He no wear white coat."
Yeah, they saw right through that. Yeah.
So I just remember that all
Nobody
the time.
choke on their food at dinner.
exactly,
He's not
exactly.
that kind of
Oh,
doctor.
I love it. That's precious.
So did you always want to be a provost? Was academia always in the cards for you?
So I attended Union as an undergraduate.
Okay.
Had a really formative experience here. Had a faculty who invested in me. I came here sensing a call to ministry, wanted to prepare for some sort of ministry, and as my academic gifts were kind of recognized and affirmed by faculty members, I decided I want to walk through whatever educational doors the Lord opens for me and just take time to discern what that calling might look like.
Yeah.
And so I did a master's degree and then was able to do a doctorate and then had the opportunity to teach at a school similar to Union, another place, and eventually made my way back here. But I certainly didn't know then that I wanted to be a professor, let alone a provost. I don't think I would have known what that was when I was a student either. And really not until I got into serving as a faculty member did I understand that. And then it took many more years to imagine doing this.
That's right. So I see you as a guy who loves the classroom and teaching and knowledge. Has it been hard for you to transition out of the classroom and into a more administrative function?
Yeah, so I think I love getting to help students, serve students, teach, faculty as well. I actually, at my the first school I taught at, I was a co-chair of a department of 3 people.
Okay.
That was my first administrative role, co-chair of a department of 3 people, which what happened was me and another guy were both new, and the dean offered both of us the opportunity to be chair. I think thinking one of us would say no.
Yeah.
We were both very grateful to have jobs and just were up for anything. So we both said yes, and then he was kind of in a spot. And so he let us share the role. And what I learned through that year was that I did not want to be a co-chair with someone of a department of 3 people.
Yeah. Tough beat for the third guy, huh?
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't just ask him, but but I also realized through there, like I saw how my administrative gifting freed others up to be in the classroom more and focus more on that, and so it really is a love for the classroom that drives even my administrative work because I see it as a way to set faculty up to succeed in the classroom and things like that. And so even though I'm not in the classroom as much, I hope that my work does,
for sure.
end up
that's so good.
improving the classroom.
Yeah, indeed.
That's so good. Okay, let's talk about academics here at Union. Let's talk about the fact that, and I love that we do that. And again, I'm not faculty, so I always am like, I halfway know what I'm talking about. I know I'm one of those that I know just enough to talk about it, but there could be some inaccuracy involved, and that's okay.
There's never inaccuracy from faculty. On the other hand, we all know what we're talking
You
about.
are all experts. But I love the fact that we have a core curriculum. I hear students say, I don't know why I have to take blah, blah, blah class that they feel like is not important, not relevant to whatever it is that they want to do in life. They are ready to jump and get right into that junior year or sometimes their sophomore year and start taking the classes that they love. talk to us about the value, the importance of what our core curriculum is and why that has value in the overall 4 years of study.
Whew, that's a big question.
I know,
So
I'm sorry.
I would start by saying I think part of that sentiment comes just from students thinking, like in our broader culture, whatever you want to be when you grow up, you should be able to add up exactly what you have to do to get there.
Right.
And if something doesn't obviously lead to that, well, then it must not be important. And that's really not true in any field. Like
that's
even
so
if
good.
we went to like athletics or something like that, like Patrick Mahomes is in the news a lot. I don't suppose that Patrick Mahomes constantly plays football.
Right.
In fact, there are probably some things that he does in preparation that we would look and say,
Right.
what does that have to do with football?
Right.
But it does. It prepares him for that. And it's a similar thing with curriculum in any area. Even sometimes the foundational courses in our field of study don't feel like they're really getting us to what we want to do. And so in a culture that says, get everything as fast as you can, get exactly what you want, you craft your own way, we've put ourselves in this place where we're not willing to see the wisdom that others have and how we might prepare. And that's what a curriculum is meant to do. So even within a major, there might be classes that students don't think they really need.
That's right.
But there are experts who say, hey, actually, this will prepare you. You may not know why now, but it will. And it's the same thing with a core curriculum. And so our core curriculum, especially because Union is a liberal arts-based institution, holds to this idea that there is more to being educated than simply having the technical qualifications for one field of study. There's something about understanding what God has said, how God has spoken through taking Bible courses. There's something about understanding the way science approaches the world, or the way that math helps us understand the way God's creation works, or the way literature helps us see how humans over the past centuries and millennia have grappled with the challenges that we're going to face. And we're so used to thinking that we know everything, that our moment is the most important moment. We need that kind of education to help not just round us out, but help us to truly see what's going on in the world that we're in, whatever our calling is for it.
So good.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And as we seek to, obviously, we all want to see this work and we all love what we're doing here and believe in it. But as we kind of sell, I guess, for lack of a better term, the vision of this to prospective students and parents who tend to be very pragmatic, how do we sort of acknowledge the pragmatism, but seek to, give shape to an experience that ideally is 4 years long, involves some spiritual formation, some discipleship, some learning to think via some of these core experiences, when it seems like more and more students and parents are like, get me through as quick as possible. Yep. I've already got X number of credits from dual enrollment. It's just a different kind of thing that we're selling in 2025, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one piece of this is you have to realize that we might think when we're 18 years old, we know exactly what we want to do and how quickly we want to get there. But actually one of the things that God might need to do is slow us down and help us see something different. I mean, I came to Union as a youth ministry major, quite certain that God was calling me to do youth ministry. And I did serve as a youth pastor for a time, and I think that was a real understanding of God's calling on my life.
Fran, I could see it. Still, we got the hair, we got the put an acoustic in his hands, Jesus fish tattoo on his ankle, and I think we're there.
So some of that rubbed off,
That's
right? But if I had been given what I thought I wanted at that time, which was to get through college as fast as possible and start doing that, I wouldn't be able to be obedient to God at this stage in my life because I wouldn't have the preparation to do that. And so I think that again, this is a cultural thing that try to push faster. You don't want to get the wrong thing faster. And one thing I love about Union is my son will probably be at Union in a couple years. He doesn't even want to visit any other colleges. I could imagine him in Ted's class falling in love with something he didn't even know existed, and then having this kind of like existential crisis of, what should I do? And I could imagine if he had come in as a major in Bible or theology, him then going over to his advisor in the School of Theology and Missions and saying, I'm in this class with Professor Cluck. And and that faculty member not saying, "Oh, but you'd better just take more of our classes,"
Right.
but instead help him work through the implications of that and what his calling might be in not just a nice, caring environment, but in an environment where the people that he is being influenced by are trustworthy, because ultimately they're trying to point him to God, not to just one particular path.
Oh, God,
That's the magical thing about what we do, I think. And even as adults, you and I took a trip together this summer, and one of my great moments as a professor was like turning you on to an author that you hadn't read yet. And you got into David Foster Wallace on that trip because I was reading The Pale King.
Well, I will say I had read some. I mean, I had read Infinite Jest already and some essays, but I had put off Pale King.
Yeah. Okay. But I don't know, just chopping it up with you about that it's one of those moments, Fran, where you realize like it's a huge privilege to get to do what we do with the people that we do it with. And because of Genesis 2 and the fallen world, I mean, not every day at work is puppy dogs and ice cream, but getting to do this and getting to share ideas and affinities, not only with students, but with each other is a pretty magical thing. And I think, far be it from me to say we're the only place where that can happen, but I do think it happens at a pretty unique level here, and it can happen at a school this size where you really know people and are known by other people. I know this space is competitive. We're competing for students with other schools. What would you say separates Union? What makes Union special or different? Yeah,
I think it all depends on what you're comparing to. So if a student is comparing Union to maybe some other secular private colleges or state colleges, I think that the difference between having a curriculum where faith and knowledge unite, where Christ is integrated truly into everything, not simply sprinkled on top or added on later, is very different than having an education where you're also trying to make sure that you're going to the student group that meets on Thursday nights and does a Bible study. We have those things too, but at some of those colleges, that's as much faith as a student is going to get. And
that's right.
We still want students to be in church, to be part of those Bible studies and things like that happen in the college years, but faith is also infused in the classroom. So that would be the distinctive if that's the comparison. And I think if a student is comparing Union to other Christian colleges, I think that especially the academic rigor that we have, not just the faculty, but the students that we have. The average ACT score I just heard this morning for our incoming class next year so far is almost a 27, which is really, really high. And I've heard that about 1/3 of our incoming freshmen tend to have above a 30 on the ACT. And that's really good, because students who are really sharp need to realize for their own sanctification that there are people just as, if not smarter than them.
Right.
That is good and freeing, even if intimidating. But also when a student is here, the opportunity, the way that they can grow both inside and outside the classroom because of the caliber of faithful Christian young people who are coming to Union just transcends most other places that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it transcends a lot of the things that as parents we get our heads turned by, programs and buildings and amenities. Shopping for a college is not unlike shopping for a country club nowadays. And I love that we can lean into, some of those other things and also have a great place to do it as well. So you grew up in the Midwest.
I did,
right?
yep. Eastern Iowa.
Yeah, Cubs fan?
I am, yes, yes.
Still a Cubs fan?
Fourth generation.
Hey, I went to Wrigley Field for the first time this past summer.
What a magical place. Tell us about that experience.
Well, we went, our oldest son lives in Chicago now. And so we walk in, we're Braves fans. Okay, we're not Cardinals fans. We're Braves fans. Through and through, die hard. So it felt a little strange. I felt like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. Do I cheer? Do I not cheer? What am I doing? We walk in, and I had a moment, like we stopped and took a picture of something, not outside. It was something inside. And I was like, we're at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, it's a cathedral of
It
sports.
is. It was like a holy moment almost. Like, this is where we are. It was so fun. They were also playing the Yankees that day, and they beat the Yankees.
Wow.
So
That's good.
how about that? But yeah, so I love that. I love that you love baseball. Go Cubs.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was raised, born a Cubs fan, if you can. It goes all the way back to my great grandmother, maybe further. But so I'm a fourth generation Cubs fan. When I was little, I remember going on these trips with my grandpa, who lived in this small town in Iowa, and they would have these events for the old people. And one of them that they would do each year is they would charter a bus to Wrigley Field, and you could, buy a ticket for the bus, and you could bring your grandkid if you wanted, and we would get on the bus at 4:30 in the morning or whatever in Waverly, Iowa, and we would ride the bus, stop at a McDonald's, which was a big deal for me.
Oh yeah.
And then we would end up at Wrigley Field, and he would say, put your wallet in your front pocket so you don't get robbed. It's the big city. But I remember going to Cub games at that age and taking my sons. In 2016, even we got to go to a few games, which is great. And
that's awesome.
So it goes deep. My son, my oldest, he when he was in school in Kansas, he was in kindergarten. I taught in Kansas at the time. And he came home, we were having dinner, and my wife said, "Hey, Zeke, why don't you tell Dad what you told me when you got home from school?"
Ooh,
and I said,
"Here it comes.
All right, what's up, bud?"
Yeah.
This is a moment.
He looked up at me and he said, "I like the Cardinals."
Oh no.
And I set my fork down, and I looked at that little boy in the eye, and I said, "Do you want to be part of this family or not?"
Yeah, that's right.
This is serious.
And I explained it to him, and by the end of the year, he had converted several kids in his class to being Cubs fans. I think they are to this day, 10 years later.
He had to sleep outside for a while. He turned his room into a den. But
there was, for a while, my boys, when they don't do this so much anymore, they're 15 and 13, but when they were, 9 and 7, if we saw a cardinal in the backyard, they were out the back door to get that thing out of the yard.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
It's dedication.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, I've got a question for you. I can't imagine what it's like to be provost and to be the person that is overseeing the academics of this institution. Like, that is a daunting task, because I have had 3 of my children graduate from Union. I've had the parent hat, the employee hat. I feel like, and I've had an athletic hat. 2 of my boys were athletes here. So I feel like I have a good grasp of who we are, but they're here to get an education, and that feels very overwhelming. What has been maybe the biggest surprise, the biggest blessing? Because I can imagine, like, day one or leading into this transition, there had to have been moments where you're like, what am I doing? Can I do this? But I bet along the way, over the last year you've been in this role, there have been some moments where the Lord has said, "Jacob, you're exactly where I want you to be, and you're doing good work." Where was a surprise or two along the way that just reassured you, like, okay, this is hard, but this is good work. I am where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. So I would say this wasn't necessarily one moment, and I knew this before taking the role, but I think the reason that it's not overwhelming is, first of all, because of the history of Union. So there have been good people doing this work at Union for a long time. And so even I got to work very closely with the previous provost, Dr. John Netland, who's a wonderful man and who invested a lot in me, and I learned a ton from him. So having that was really important. I work closely with a wonderful group of women in the provost's office, my associate provost, my director for institutional effectiveness, some other staff members in the office, my assistant Megan Murphy, are excellent at what they do, and just I don't even always have to know I get down in the weeds sometimes, but I have a level of trust with them that I don't have to do that, and so it doesn't have to be overwhelming because I don't carry it on my own. And then I oversee a team of 9 academic deans who each have their lane and know their lane well and are incredibly gifted. And so really what I love about the work is it plays into something that I enjoy, which is investing in people and developing teams and resourcing people to do what they need to do, and then stepping out of the way and letting them do it and get the credit for it. And so it's just a true joy to get to work with those folks. And then also the faculty of the broader university. It's a great group that we're privileged to have.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we need to be led. I think one of the odd things about faculty is that you're all an expert in your field. So there's a sense of, I know what I'm doing, but there's also a sense of, like, somebody needs to coach the coaches.
That's right.
And, more than that, even I think we need to be reminded of a vision of who we are and where we're going and what we're trying to be institutionally. And we want and need to be reminded that we're a part of a winning thing, something that's moving forward on the rise where there's a plan. And I think that's where somebody like, Jacob can be really instrumental in, helping us succeed and feel comfortable with where we are from year to year.
Okay, here's a question. Okay, we live in a culture where, especially these students, I'm not this person, and I don't know if it's just how I'm wired or when I grew up. But we live in a society and a culture where these students are, and even here at Union, it's very performance driven. It is, I love that we are excellence driven. I will never say that is not a good thing. It's a fine line. There's a really fine line of I'm pursuing excellence, but I'm also, wearing myself out in the process. And I'm afraid to fail. I feel like I've just got to perform up here all the time. How do educators, how do families, how do parents, how do I come around students and help them navigate in a world that says perform, 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 achieve, 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 and anything less than is not excellent?
Yeah.
Like, how do we help them navigate the seasons where I don't maybe want to major in that anymore? Maybe I thought I was good in this area and now I'm not. And there's just a lot of uncertainty that happens in these 4 years. There's a lot of transformation.
Yeah.
How do we help them navigate when they're not performing, when they're not achieving?
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, it's a delicate line because on the one hand, we should be unsatisfied when we fail to perform. Right? That's part of how we get better. Yeah. And part of what any good educational institution is going to do is get you to that edge and sometimes nudge you over it. So you realize, well, I need to work harder. But we also have to remember that other aspect of our core values, which is being Christ-centered, and that doesn't just mean we have chapel or sometimes we say Jesus' name or something like that, but it can remind us on these kind of identity issues that our identity, our performance doesn't earn our identity in Christ, but it's also not unrelated.
Right.
Our performance is a result of our identity in Christ. It's God working in us to transform us that should rightly drive us to want to do well. But that's why we need a Christian academic community, especially at this age, where when students hit that wall for maybe the first time or the first time that really feels like for real, there are people around them. When I was associate dean in the School of Theology and Missions and taught a little bit more, I would frequently teach Old Testament survey in the fall, which I love teaching because I would get students on their first day of college. And there's something, especially at Union, that's special about that because you have this group of students who, for their whole lives, have been like the top of the food chain. They've been in classes where they're the smart kid. They've been the ones setting the curve, or they've been the ones that things come easy to. And I know that my class probably isn't going to be the hardest class they take, but it's also not going to be the easiest. Yeah. And I tell those students on the first day, hey, so you know what? Some of you are going to get your first B this semester. That's right. Maybe in this class, maybe in another. Some of you, it might go further.
Lots of those.
For some of you, you're going to get your first non-vowel letter grade, right?
Tough.
And then the opportunity to walk with them through that is something that is really important to our faculty because, again, it's not that their identity in Christ is unrelated to their performance, but you can't get them backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Our performance doesn't earn that identity, but because of that identity we have in Christ, it should fuel our performance because we should want to honor God with all that we do.
Boy, if we could only get that figured out or remember that on a more regular basis because they get stuck. They get stuck and they feel like I have failed everybody. If I make a B. Oh my gosh.
I think we are in the business of providing first experiences that maybe in previous generations happened at 13, 14, or 15, but now they're happening here.
Right.
Getting cut from the team, not being the smartest kid in the class. By nature of a lot of things, a lot of those firsts are happening here. I think, teaching that not all anxiety is bad anxiety.
That's right.
It's not always the demon that we make it out to be. Sometimes, being pushed in that way is not a bad thing. And then also the rising tide of excellence elevating all the ships. By God's grace, my program is a lot bigger today than it was 10 years ago, but that means that maybe the sixth person on my roster could be the number one person on some other school's roster.
Right.
And because of excellence and because of how we achieve, being sixth on my roster is still really valuable. You know, it's like Miami football in the 80s. You know, you can be the second guy off the bench and still get drafted, you know, and that's a great position to be in, right? And you're selling something different there. You're not selling, you get to come in immediately and be, you know, the king of the hill. But man, it's good to compete, and it's good to have some anxiety, and it's good to do it in an environment, to what Jacob said, where Christ is preeminent and the person on this side of the desk like cares about your soul, you know. And I think that's pretty special.
It is. It's a sweet place.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
We're in a sweet place.
Yeah, and often the discipleship comes in the moments where the person experiences failure or disappointment, even at a high level for the first time, and then you can really come alongside and speak the gospel to that person and be a comfort and a balm, and that's exactly what you want to be.
Yeah. Well, and I have said to parents so many times, and I still say it to parents, is that our children are going to fall. They are going to fail in some way or another, in the classroom, out of the classroom. It's just, it happens. We understand that. But for me as a parent and for us as an institution, I have witnessed, even with my own children, that it is in how we pick them up. The picking up is so beautiful, and it's so powerful, and carries so much weight, because that is probably what the child's going to remember. That is what the student's going to remember when I didn't do well, or I disappointed somebody, or, you know, again, in or out of the classroom, but how they picked me up, how they helped me see things differently, how they pointed me to Christ in the just purest, most genuine of hearts. That matters to me, because I'm not in the classroom. And I just think, does it get any better than all of this? I don't think so. I wish I would have had a place like this. I wish that I would have had an experience between 18 and 22 where people were really pushing me towards excellence, but also understanding my identity in Christ. I just think, what a gift we have here.
Yeah. Well, it sets patterns, right? It sets patterns that impact how people deal with failure and frustration and disappointment later in life.
Right.
And that's why I think, again, not trying to rush through college is helpful in some of those regards. We might have credits that are ready and sitting there, but there's more that's happening in a holistic Christian academic community, and that opportunity to realize, like, oh, this is the pattern of how I should deal with people who disappoint me, because I have this example of Professor Cluck and what he did in that class when I failed that exam. And it doesn't just serve them in the moment. It sets a pattern that sets them up for life, because it's a pattern that echoes the way God acts in Scripture and the way that God calls us to be.
Indeed.
Man. Can I come back to school?
Sure.
Can I be an undergrad student?
Journalism.
Oh, this is what we're going to do.
Non-traditional. We'll get you in there. It'll be like Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School. Have you seen that?
Gosh.
I watched that at your recommendation.
Dude, isn't that wild?
I did. Yeah. Wild.
It's on my Rushmore of movies about college. We'll get some hate mail for that one for you, Thomas.
I will forward them all to you.
And I will not respond.
Dr. Shatzer, I'm very, very grateful for you. I'm very thankful for just not only who you are as a person, but all that you bring to the literal tables day in and day out and week after week, and how you are playing such a significant part in these transformative years for these students. It may feel like you're back here behind the scenes and people don't know really what a provost is, or they see the letters in the library above the offices and they still don't know who's back there and what's going on. But it's significant work, and I'm very, very grateful for who you are and what you do and how you go about doing it. So
he's okay.
Yeah, he's all right. We'll keep him. We'll keep him.
Well, good. Thank you
all
both for having me.
Yes.
This is fun.
Sure. Yeah. Not too bad. Painless half hour, huh?
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Let's Talk About That, a Union University podcast. We'll see you next time. Y'all have a great day.